Well, let's speak now to Vinoo, who is a Wall Street criminal defense attorney and former New York prosecutor. Thank you very much for joining us here on BBC News. The significance of this, I mean, this is a question a word we've been using when it comes to Donald Trump since these legal challenges were brought up. But where are we now?
Well, between now and July 11th, his team will get to present a written submission regarding sentencing, and it's basically called a mitigation packet. So they're going to be arguing that the judge doesn't sentence him to any prison time. That's the argument they'll put forth. They'll put forth letters in support. And the prosecution at some point, and maybe they'll do it the day before, will announce what kind of sentence they're seeking, what their recommendation to the judge is. And my feeling, or my strong feeling, is that they will be seeking some sort of jail sentence, perhaps the max. And so you'll have these dueling written submissions. And then on the day of sentencing, one prosecutor will get to speak. The one attorney for Donald Trump will get to speak, and Mr. Trump, if he chooses, will also get to speak. Those are the only three people who are legally allowed to speak. The judge could allow others, but it's unlikely. And then the judge will pronounce sentence. And it's my view, and I've said this, I was on your show, that in my view, this judge is going to give him jail time. The concerns that your correspondent brought up about security risks, that's a city issue. The judge, who is a state court judge, doesn't really care about that. And in fact, I think he's going to be one who wants to go down as the person who put Donald Trump in jail. And also from the district attorney's point of view, DA Alvin Bragg, they want to say they took a hard line. And so all these factors weigh in for a very strong possibility that he's going to see the inside of Rikers Island, one of the most notorious prisons in the world.
Fascinating, so fascinating. I mean, the Republicans have spoken about Alvin Bragg and Judge Merchan a lot and criticised as well. Is that something that could be considered in the appeal case?
No, in terms of the appeal, look, after the sentencing July 11th, the defense has 30 days to file what's called a notice of appeal. The appellate process could take years. Now, if he is sentenced to jail, his lawyers can immediately go to the Intermediate Appellate Court, which sits just a little bit further north in Manhattan, and try to get him bail pending appeal. They may or may not be successful. That is hard to predict because it goes before one judge, and that judge probably won't want to be the judge that says, hey, I want to let the Donald out from jail. So he's going to be stuck, at least for a bit, in jail at Rikers Island, if there's jail. Now, the judge doesn't have to give jail; he could put him on a risk, but nothing. What short of punishment is he going to think is appropriate for a person who's now committed 34, according to a jury, 34 criminal acts for which he was convicted of. So I was actually surprised that he got to walk out of the courtroom, but I think the judge wasn't expecting the verdict this day, so he allowed him to walk out. The default position in New York state courts, and I know this judge, I appeared before him, is to incarcerate people once they are convicted at trial, but that didn't happen today.
Vinoo, I wonder if we could just, looking at the way he mounted his defence, was the defence leading Donald Trump, in your opinion, just watching how it was all handled? Were they leading Donald Trump, or was it Donald Trump pulling the strings?
Well, I think in this area, his lawyers, and I know his primary counsel, Todd Blanche, I had a case against him when he was a prosecutor. They did everything, as far as I could tell, they did everything they could to mount the correct legal challenges. The problem was this judge gave the prosecution everything that they asked for, and probably more. There was a gag order that, is questionable constitutionality of it. There was a request to move the case out of Manhattan. I've said from the beginning that I didn't think he could get a fair trial. I mean, my office is here on Wall Street. I'm about a 10-minute walk to the courthouse. This is the most rabidly anti-Trump place in America. And if you go to the outer boroughs, just slightly north and slightly east in the suburbs, you have jury pools that are pretty much equally split. So he had a good argument to move the trial out there, which was rejected. But this judge also made it very easy on the prosecutors because they said that they didn't have to prove what the underlying crime that he was supposed to be concealing was. So it could have been tax fraud, state election fraud, federal election fraud. They said that prosecutors didn't need to prove that. And that put the defense in a very difficult position because how do you know what to argue against if you're not sure what the jury is going to be considering? So there were a number of problems that Donald Trump faced, and I don't at all normally when I go on and I talk and I see mistakes, it's very difficult to pin any blame on his attorneys because of the conditions that they had to deal with.
Vinoo, there's also this argument that they moved from misdemeanor to felony. Why does that matter?
Well, the difference between a misdemeanor and felony is simply one of potential jail time. So a misdemeanor is in New York is a crime punishable by up to 1 year in jail. And a felony is anything where the punishment is greater than 1 year in jail. So the reason that what's this falsifying business records are normally considered misdemeanors. However, when you're saying that they were done to conceal another crime, it gets elevated to a felony for which just on one count alone, he could face 4.5 years of prison. So that's the significance. It is one of potential jail time.
Vinoo Verghese, the Wall Street criminal defense attorney and former New York prosecutor. It's been fascinating speaking to you. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.